Before I start, I want to say two things. Number one, thanks to everybody who really liked my Blame video. I'm a very, very tiny channel who started making videos for basically one person, shout out to my friend Tamika, and getting more than 600 views on one video is kind of amazing. I'm used to getting about 50 views, if that, so it felt really good knowing a lot of people enjoyed something I made. And the second thing I'd like to say is that I made a video about Skinamarink, and because I used footage from an old Hansel and Gretel movie, the video got struck multiple times, so I went ahead and unlisted it for now. I do want to do a proper talk about Skinamarink and why it's a great piece of art, but not such a good movie, but I'll save that for either the next video or the one after that. I'm also thinking about doing a Knights of Sidonia video and a video about the prequel of Noise. So those are what's up on the horizon. So my channel started out basically as a gaming channel. So you'll notice I talk a lot about video games. I talk a lot about manga, video games, and things like that. But I did start out as a gaming channel. And when I stumble upon a really good game, I can get lost in it. I'm pretty old, and I've been gaming since I was a small child. It's a passion of mine that never died. Day after day, I find myself looking for a game that will go above and beyond expectations, something that will break the mold and leave me completely satisfied with the experience. I did not expect to find the one game to rule them all in the zombie survival genre. I've been stuck on Project Zomboid for the last 2 weeks. Yeah. During that time, I've been learning the basics of this game. Just the basics. One thing about Project Zomboid is it is way more difficult than it seems. You'll hear people describe it as having an extremely steep learning curve, and that is the truth. The game doesn't do much to teach you how to play it. I mean, the tutorial barely touches on the main things you need to know to get through it. And you know what? I kind of like that. Soon into playing, I realized this game was more like a Sims game, but during the apocalypse, and also there are zombies. So I'm just going to cut to it. The first few runs I had, I died a lot. Due to me being pretty obsessed with the Sims franchise, I was able to figure out what the moodles, which are basically moodlets, mean in Project Zomboid right away. It was then I told myself, this game is way more in-depth than it looks, isn't it? And it is. Not only are there aggressive zombies everywhere, but the environment can kill you. If you somehow make it to winter, and you likely will not until you've become a veteran of the game, you can catch a cold and die. If you walk over glass or climb into a window with broken glass, you can cut yourself and die from the infection. Walking around in the rain can result in a cold, which makes you cough, and the coughing is loud. It pretty much wrecks your ability to stealth entirely. There are several skills you need to learn in order to make it in this harsh world. Carpentry, foraging, fishing, and those are exactly what they sound like. Does the game tell you that you need these skills? No, but it's pretty easy to figure out once you've played a couple of runs that carpentry is probably the most important thing here. Watching TV and reading books is an essential part of leveling up as well, something you wouldn't expect to see in a zombie game. And that's why this game stood out to me. In most zombie games, you expect to go out guns blazing, mowing down zombies with no regard for the fact that you're just a human. Also, there usually isn't much lore accompanying the story. I'm not really into zombie games, so I was surprised when I fell in love with Zomboid. As the kids say, it hits different. If you pay attention to the television and radio stations, you begin to piece together a picture of what happened in Knox County. The game takes place in Kentucky, and the strain that turns people is called the Knox infection. As I said, I was amazed to find a lot of lore in this game, but it's the gameplay that I found most intriguing and, frankly, addictive. Yeah, it's addictive. My favorite genre of game is survival of some sort, but I'm almost always disappointed with these games. One of the reasons I love The Sims is because, at its core, it is a survival game. I know it doesn't seem like it, but if you don't feed your sim, that motherfucker will die of starvation. I like games like The Forest, but the controls of that game drove me fucking nuts. I tried Outward and got wrecked pretty much immediately, and I just haven't tried it again. The controls were a little funny, so I'll probably get back to it one day, but the controls were enough to kind of make me go, alright, this needs to go on the back burner. Other survival games I've tried never quite hit the mark, which is why you'll notice all my favorite games are decidedly not that genre. This is until I found Project Zomboid, the answer to everything I've been asking for. I remember telling my boyfriend once, I want a game like The Sims, but where you farm, live off the land, build your own house and stuff, but also it's, like, not boring. It has game-like aspects to it, so it doesn't get too Sims-like, you know? And then I said, I'm probably expecting too much from modern gaming. Now, I'd heard about Project Zomboid in the past. A lot of YouTubers I quite enjoy play the game, but I never paid too much attention to it beyond a few giggles. The more videos I watched, the more interesting I noticed the game was. However, it being multiplayer kept me away. Then I found out you could play the game solo. Desperate for a survival game that would scratch the itch, I investigated. And man, I did not realize I'd found exactly what I'd been asking for. There it was, on Steam, all along, watching me, waiting for me to realize, and finally, it went on sale. Yes, I'm cheap. But there is something else underneath Zomboid, something I didn't realize, and occasionally, in-game, it hits me damn hard, if only just for a second. When I was first introduced to Project Zomboid, it was through one of my favorite YouTubers. After a while, I noticed a ton of content creators I liked were playing this game, mostly multiplayer, which is what's important here. Most of the content creators who play this game do it with others. In fact, that's a very large aspect of the game. You could argue it is ideally played online, whether with your friends or strangers. The game experience is enhanced when you've got people to help you. Well, I've spent most of my life pretty isolated. I don't have many friends in the real world. I've got a few I know strictly online, but for the most part, I don't have a lot of friends. And the friends I do have are busy people. They've got careers, families, lives. Me, well, I've got a lot of spare time on my hands. Due to my personal circumstances, I don't work, so I spend a lot of time at home. Gaming. I mean, sometimes I even call myself a stay-at-home gamer. Yeah, it's sad. It's not funny. Anyway, I try my hardest to read and write a little each day, clean my house, be productive outside of sitting around fucking gaming all day. But ultimately, I spend far too many hours a day playing games. It pushes the existential dread away for the most part. We're not talking about you today, Nier. Now, I have a tendency to, find sadness anywhere I look. When it comes to Project Zomboid, I didn't have to look too hard. As I ran around the game, looting houses, searching for cars to hotwire, I play a burglar build, which I've come to learn is what a lot of beginners go for. Beating down zombies and barely escaping with my life, I'd sometimes think, this would be a lot easier with a friend. That thought was minor at first, only coming every once in a while. But when I finally had runs where I lasted longer than a few days in game, I started really noticing how difficult things were without someone else. Every single thing became a mission and a fucking half. Sometimes just clearing a street would tire me out and I wouldn't even be able to get the loot I came for. Engaging in combat in this game with an exhausted Moodle is a bad idea as it severely cuts the damage you deal down. The more negative Moodles you get, and they will pile up as you engage in combat with hordes of zombies, the worse you perform. Like getting too hot, needing water, becoming tired and fatigued are all realities in this game. Things that you'd face as a real human engaging in endless combat. If you get too exhausted, you'll get to a point where you can't run or hop fences or do anything, and that will spell your death. The deeper I got into the game, the more and more I'd think, damn, I need to play with someone else. Damn, I wish I had a friend to distract here. Wow, this would be easier if someone else could help me loot, stockpile, build, forage. You understand? Project Zomboid started reminding me I didn't have many friends, on top of making me think about how awful it would be to be in my character's situation. All alone, no friends, surrounded by zombies. It's like how I felt when I was an edgy teen, Oh my god, I'm the only deep one. Everyone else is a mindless zombie. Jokes aside, the game really did make me feel lonely. Part of this is due to me turning the music off. I have bad hearing and the music was muffling the sound of zombies. And without music, it really gives the game a silent isolation type of feeling. But once you make it past day 9 or 10, the television broadcast and radio stations get cut. Even if you still have power, which you usually will unless you are terribly unlucky, now there is no one else out there talking. Playing CDs and watching VHSs does nothing but remind you that everyone is gone. And that is depressing as all hell. And again, I'd get the thoughts that I needed friends to play with. Then I realized that was the beauty of single player. You get immersed as you drive through empty roads, seeing mindless zombies wander, thinking about your next plans and how you're going to implement them. I remember thinking a few times, I wonder what I would do in this situation if it were a reality. I recently played multiplayer with a friend of mine. Hey, I did say I had some friends. And that experience was pretty fun, despite he and I getting totally wrecked the entire time. However, there is something quite special about solo Project Zomboid. Everything you achieve is that much more rewarding. Even making a single meal feels so good. And when you actually find generators, it gives you a little rush, Every zombie whose head you crack on your own, every street and building you clear, every window you board up, every wall you construct, every base you lock down, doing this stuff alone in Project Zomboid is difficult, to say the least. I recently had 2 saves go tits up, one where I was 26 days in, and another where I was 2 weeks in. I cherished both these saves, but all it took was 1 bite to end the runs, something I managed to do both saves in 1 day. I was pretty upset, but I won't lie. Starting a new game is kind of exciting. There are so many different builds you can try, it's actually worth dying over and over to try new things out. The game has a ton of replayability because of this. The game gives you a lot of freedom. Want to stay in the city and make a post-apocalyptic life like that? You can do that. Want to live down by the river in a tent and fish and forage for food? That works too. You can find tons of farmland and forest areas, there are a few towns scattered across the map, and there is, of course, the city everyone calls the endgame city, Louisville, which, believe it or not, I've got a save where I've lasted almost a month. It's going okay, but it is nerve-wracking. The deeper into this game you get, the more that is on the line. Like I said, 1 bite can end it all. So, since I wrote this script, I've actually made it almost 2 months in Louisville, and I just wanted to say that. It's kind of crazy, but I've done pretty well. I did mess with the settings, like, to make them less active during the day to give myself a fighting chance. But I'm still stupid and go out at night anyway. But I do think it's pretty cool that I've been able to last in Louisville that long. In a way, Project Zomboid reminds me of Dark Souls. Every death might frustrate you, but they are meaningful and teach you what not to do the next time around. This is a game where 1 misstep in combat can cost you everything. Once your character is gone, that's it. You can start a new character in the same world, but they won't have any of the leveled skills of your previous character. In my opinion, it's not even worth it to do this. It's better to just start a clean run and hope you don't fuck it up again. I'm very bad at Souls games, but most of the deaths I've experienced in them taught me something. I recently tried out Bloodborne, and I remember learning very quickly how to adapt after dying to regular enemies quite a few times. Same with Stranger of Paradise. And that's how it is in Zomboid, except ultimately, the combat might not even be what gets you. You could get snuck up on while you're not paying attention, you could get an infection of some kind that will take you out, maybe you fell out a fucking window, yeah, I did that, or maybe you took some pain pills and then downed bourbon, and yeah, that'll kill you too. The zombie threat becomes easier and easier to deal with the longer you play, but keeping your character fed, in a good mood, making sure they have enough power, water, and food to get them through winter, those become the real trials in the game. In order to get the supplies you need, you've got to face off with hordes of zombies, and 1 tiny mistake could result in the uncurable bite that dooms you. The longer you last, the worse things will get, and you know this while you play. At first, time seems to move slow in the game, but the longer you survive, the faster the days go by. You know you're on a time limit with resources. Once the power is out, fresh food all over is going to go to waste. Once the water is out, you're now depending on what's left in drains, and again, you are well aware this is finite. Building water collecting barrels, finding generators and gas to run them, learning how to grow and trap your own food are invaluable skills that you cannot afford to wait to learn. You will eventually have to leave the sanctuary of the town you started in to find more resources, and that is when things will get even more hairy. Before I ramble too long, what I'm trying to say is that Project Zomboid is one of the most rewarding games I've ever played. It is exactly the type of game I was looking for. It's a one-of-a-kind experience that deserves all the praise it gets and more. It might have been a reminder that I could use a bigger social circle, but it also reminded me why I've always preferred single-player games. Risk and reward, trial and error, achieving something on my own. While playing with friends is often a rewarding experience in its own way, I'd actually say Project Zomboid is at its best when experienced alone.